First Peter is addressed to communities scattered across Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, people living as strangers and exiles in a society that viewed them with suspicion and hostility. By the time the apostle reaches the 3rd chapter, his pastoral concern has grown precise. He is speaking directly to believers who suffer for the sake of righteousness. The surrounding verses ask whether anyone can truly harm those who are zealous for what is good, and they counsel that if suffering must come, it is better to endure it for doing right than for doing wrong, from that immediate setting. The text turns to Christ himself as the ground and model for such endurance. The verse reads, "For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit." Every clause of this sentence repays close attention. The phrase "suffered once for sins" draws on the sacrificial vocabulary of the Greek scriptures, where the construction for sins marks the purpose and sphere of an offering, yet Peter himself supplies the interpretation. Christ suffered that he might bring us to God. The goal is not a juridical settlement within the divine being, not the appeasement of infinite wrath by means of infinite suffering, but the restoration of human beings to living relationship with their Creator, God, of his supreme and sole goodness, resolved to forgive sins to those who turn from wickedness and live according to Christ's instruction. To make this gracious will known, he sent his only begotten Son into the world. Christ not only proclaimed this divine mercy, but confirmed it through signs greater than any previously seen, and then, at God's own command, underwent the death of the cross. And so that no shadow of doubt might remain, God raised him on the 3rd day and exalted him to immortal life, giving him authority over heaven and earth as the reward for his immense obedience. Philippians 2 traces precisely this movement. Christ was obedient unto death, and for that reason God raised and highly exalted him. That exaltation is not the return of a divine person to a prior station, it is the vindication and reward of a righteous man by the one God. The second clause of the verse carries the matter further. Being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, presents two parallel Greek dative constructions, each pointing to a sphere of existence. In the realm of mortal bodily life, Christ was genuinely put to death. In the realm of resurrection life, he was genuinely restored. The Greek verb rendered "made alive" refers consistently in the New Testament to the reversal of death, to resurrection itself. The continuation of the passage confirms this, moving directly to Christ's subsequent activity and to his position at the right hand of God. Trinitarian interpreters have sometimes understood "in the flesh" and "in the spirit" as designations of Christ's two natures, with the human nature dying and the divine nature either surviving unchanged or acting as the agent of resurrection. This reading has a long tradition behind it, but the grammar resists it. The two dative phrases are structurally identical, each describing the same subject in a successive condition. If "in the Spirit" were a reference to Christ's divine nature, then the verb "made alive" would require that this divine nature itself stood in need of revivification, a conclusion no Trinitarian account can absorb. The phrases describe states, not natures, and they follow one another as death gives way to resurrection. Paul provides the decisive parallel. In the opening lines of his letter to the Romans, he describes Jesus as descended from David according to the flesh and declared to be the Son of God in power according to the Spirit of holiness, by his resurrection from the dead. The flesh-spirit contrast there maps the same territory, mortal lineage on one side, resurrection vindication on the other. No composite divine human being appears in the structure of that sentence. What appears is the one-man Jesus, first in the sphere of ordinary mortal descent, then in the sphere of resurrection power. The pattern is the same as in 1 Peter, and no appeal to two natures is required. The pastoral force of the passage points in the same direction. Peter is not directing suffering believers toward a metaphysical theory. He is directing them to an example. Christ was righteous and suffered unjustly. God vindicated him. Believers in their own sufferings may trust the same God with the same confidence. That confidence rests on the faithfulness of a God who raises the dead, not on a legal mechanism by which a divine person discharges an infinite debt on behalf of the guilty. In his Pentecost sermon, as recorded in Acts, Peter himself names the agent of resurrection without ambiguity. It was God who raised Jesus, loosing the bonds of death. The one who raises and the one who is raised are consistently distinguished throughout the apostolic witness. The Socinian reading of this verse follows the words as they stand. A fully human and righteous man suffered unjustly, died genuinely, and was raised by the one God into immortal life, so that all who follow his path through suffering may receive the same promise. The strict unity of God is not a philosophical import into this text. It is the plain shape of what Peter wrote. Christ is the commissioned mediator and confirmed pioneer, whose death and resurrection form the ground of every believer's hope, not the second person of a triune eternal being, but the Son sent by the Father, vindicated by the Father, and now seated at the Father's right hand. In closing, I want to encourage you. Examine for yourself, search diligently, read the Scriptures with an open and rational mind. Socinianism does not rest on tradition or church authority, but on the conviction that God's truth is rational, clear, and morally sublime. If this perspective has resonated with you and you wish to explore the biblical Unitarian view further, visit www.socinianismus.d for in-depth articles, studies, and reflections on central theological questions. If this video has been helpful, please support this work with a like, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another contribution on the unity of God, the teaching of Jesus, and the rational interpretation of Scripture. Until the next video.